Okay. Hi. Good to see you. Or good to be here. Not to see you because I don't see you. Okay. The first thing that I want to talk about is, well, first of all, Dr. Pitt probably should share your screen. Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea. There we go. Now you're going to be able to see what it is I'm looking at. Okay, so looking at this amended syllabus, we are here at this point in this little area, and this is amended just by me within the last 5 minutes. Obviously, eliminated the module from last week, and what I am going to do is eliminate 13 and 14. Okay, so the chapter on successful aging, which is 14, and 13 is eluding me right now, and I can't remember, but the important one is I wanted to go over chapter 12, which is long-term care, because one of the objectives in your syllabus, you will note, is that you will learn about different living environments for older adults. So then I will also be lecturing off of the Ageism PowerPoint, which both of these PowerPoints will be available to you. And you will also be completing that second, or actually the same questionnaire, but for the second time. And that will be a separate assignment. So that will be one of the assignments. There will be an assignment on chapter 12. So that's how it will go. Okay. Then next week, Thursday, the exam will open, and you'll have from Thursday the 30th until the following Thursday, August, was that 2nd? No, August 2nd is Sunday, through the 6th. Okay. So Thursday the 30th until Thursday the 6th. So I'm going to give you that whole week, and it will be over chapters 9, 10, and 12. Okay, so those will be the 3 chapters, and plus the Ageism PowerPoint as well. A couple of questions from there. Very similar structure as the last one. Okay, all right. So that's that. I will have the new syllabus, posted in place of the one that is already up there on Canvas. Okay, let me go ahead and pull up my PowerPoint here. That first one being chapter 12. Okay, so long-term care. There are going to be 2 types of long-term care facilities that we are going to be talking about in this chapter. The first is nursing homes, and the second is residential care facilities. Within nursing homes, the type of institutional facilities that are out there. There are nursing homes that are considered to be skilled nursing facilities, and then there are nursing homes that are just considered to be nursing homes. The difference is the level of care that's needed. A skilled nursing facility is going to be pretty much a step down from a hospital. So if somebody is coming in and they may be getting over pneumonia and they need to rehabilitate for a hip replacement, they will go into skilled nursing because they need to have a little bit more care given to them than, say, an individual who is coming in just to rehab for a hip replacement. The rehabilitation services that are available in nursing homes are attached through the nursing home, but then the skilled care itself is if they are on an IV, if there needs to be some wound care taken care of, so those types of things. So a skilled nursing facility is going to be a step down from a hospital. A nursing home still offers some skilled nursing care. So, for example, wound care would be one of those types of care, but also checking on PICC lines, things like that. Both places do give to the resident their basic ADLs: feeding, bathing, or eating, not feeding. I mean, if they can't feed themselves, then feeding, yes. Eating, bathing, toileting, transferring, those types of things. Many of you have worked or are working in a facility, so you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who have not set foot in a facility, that is one of the just kind of basic definitions of what is done there. Intermediate care facilities, these are going to be those types of services that are available for individuals who don't need levels of skilled nursing care. They also don't need to be in a hospital. So it might be somebody who's coming in to check on them in their home, or they go into an outpatient. They might go into rehab there at the nursing home, but it's an outpatient type of situation. Then there are also these residential care facilities. This is going to be there are a couple of different types, which I'll talk about here in just a second. But like an assisted living facility or an ALF, that's what we call it. They offer supportive care, but it's not to the level of the resident needing skilled nursing. They just need to have some kind of assistance with their activities of daily living. They might not need to have that nurse care there all the time. Okay. All right. I was going to, you know what I'm going to do? Hold on a second. Stop share. I'm going to turn off my video because I don't need to be on the video. All right. There we go. Okay. So back up to share screen. Here we go. Sorry for those of you who wanted to see my face, but you know, it's not necessary. Okay. All right. So nursing homes, with nursing homes, there are going to be a number of things that pop into a lot of people's minds. One is the expense. Nursing home costs are rising faster in healthcare than any other medical care for goods and services. Okay. The reason for this is because yes, we do have a higher number of older adults who are growing older and needing that care, but just this is an industry where the level of care can be great. The burden can be great, and the amount of care that's needed can be great. So the average cost per year for residents is, and this is a 2010 statistic, for 2020, we don't have that statistic yet, but throughout the years, it's much more than this. So we're talking $75,000 to $100,000 a year for residents pay for nursing homes. How do residents pay for nursing homes? Well, the payment breakdown is about if it's a Medicaid facility, there will be Medicaid beds in the facility, and there's about 63% of it is paid for by Medicaid. 14% is paid by Medicare, and 22% is paid by private pay. Now, for those of you who have already taken classes with me, you know that the difference between Medicaid and Medicare is aid is for those who are needing it. Care is for the elderly or for the disabled. Okay. So you have to be age specific to receive, or disability specific to receive Medicare. Medicaid is income contingent. So that's the difference between the two. For many older adults, they will be eligible to receive Medicaid. Therefore, that's why you see that payment breakdown is so much larger. Medicare, on the other side, does not pay typically for long-term care unless there are certain conditions that are met. Those conditions would be 3 days in a hospital, and then they have to go into skilled nursing for whatever reason. So we'll use our pneumonia individual. They were in the hospital for pneumonia, and they are well enough to be discharged, but not well enough or don't have the support to be able to go home to rehabilitate or to convalesce. So they're transferred to a skilled nursing facility where they will receive that extra care, but that has to be after a 3-day stay. And sometimes they can finagle that a little bit, but it typically is after a 3-day stay. And then it's 100% paid for the first so many days. And then after that last day, then it becomes a partial private pay, partial Medicare pay, and it bumps down from there. After the 100th day, it becomes all private pay. And then that's where you see that 22% of that private pay coming in there. So private pay means just that. 22% of that amount is paid by private pay, out of pocket by the resident or the resident's family members. The number of nursing homes in the United States in 2014 was about 15,000, with about 1.4 million patients. 81% have between 50 to 199 beds, and the average size of a nursing home is about 108 beds. Half of the nursing homes in the United States are owned by national chains. 2/3 are for profit, meaning that they are run like a business. And typically, nonprofit organizations that run nursing homes have higher quality ratings. And we'll talk about quality ratings here in a little while. So the percent of distribution for those individuals who are needing the services, this is in the United States in 2014, adult day services. So these are individuals who might go into, I don't like to call them daycare, but it's like a daycare facility. Individuals who need to have some assistance for just some memory care or family members' work. Right now, the adult day services, most of them are closed down because of COVID. And we know that we have had a number of discussions on the news media about COVID and nursing homes and COVID and residential care facilities. Assisted living facilities actually allowed for visitation before the skilled nursing facilities and nursing homes did. The nursing homes just in Ohio just opened up fairly recently. I would not be surprised if they start to shut down that visitation. And I went off on COVID on that, but that's something to think about. So yeah. So about 1 to 25% is this bottom number. Not 1 to 25, 1 to 25 individuals, 26 to 100 individuals, and then over 100 individuals who need to have have those services. So you see more individuals who need to have or are in the residential care community, because typically what a lot of people believe is that more individuals go into nursing homes, and that is incorrect. It's about 3 to 5% of the United States population over 65 are in nursing homes. Residential care communities actually house more individuals than nursing homes do. Okay. All right. So what are residential care facilities? These are some examples in the red: board and care homes, assisted living facilities, group homes, and adult foster homes. Not much is discussed about adult foster homes, but there are individuals who were in a foster situation who have aged up and they are still needing some assistance. So think about individuals who might have Down syndrome, who have lived a longer life than the life expectancy expected of a Down syndrome individual. They are going to be placed in an adult foster home where a family is there to provide that care for them. There are also group homes, which are shared living situations where the residents can help split the cost of living there. Board and care homes are group living arrangements that are there to meet the needs of those individuals who can't live by themselves, and they also might need some nursing services. There is a facility here in Findlay called the Judson Palmer Home. It is out on the north end of town. If you are familiar with that north end of town past the university, on the opposite side of the university, out by the State Patrol Barracks, they're actually building on a large amount of offices and new, actually the build on is for the residents. They're going to have offices in the older part of the building. So that is roughly a board and care home. And then we have assisted living facilities, and these are housing complexes that have independent apartments. The individuals there, they might choose to eat breakfast and dinner there, but be out on their own for lunch, or just eat lunch there and be out on their own for breakfast and dinner. They can pick and choose those types of services. They can also choose on whether they want to participate in any kind of activities that the assisted living might have. Um, Examples of the types of facilities: Birch Haven is what's called it's a continuing care facility. So think about it in the sense of they start at retirement, then they have an assisted living facility. They also have some memory services. They also have an adult day service, and then they also have a nursing home and a skilled nursing facility. Then there's Fox Run, which is a skilled nursing facility, nursing home. Then there is St. Catherine's, which is also a skilled nursing facility and a nursing home. There's Sunrise, which is an assisted living facility. There's Taylor House, which is an assisted living facility. So there are different facilities in Findlay. The main thing that I want you to understand is that nursing homes and skilled nursing facilities and nursing homes are not the same thing as a residential care facility. Okay, so it's going to depend on what the level of care is needed for that older adult to be able to live there. And there are also younger adults who are in skilled nursing facilities, nursing homes. They may have had an accident, or they may have the inability to live on their own and need to have that extra assistance. So they live in a skilled nursing facility or a nursing home. And you also have individuals like that who live in assisted living as well. All right, so community-based facilities and services. We have some home health services, day treatment services, and community housing alternatives. Home health is just that. Some home health services, we have Meals on Wheels or mobile meals that we have here in Hancock County with with 50 North, can't talk tonight. There are also some home health individuals who are going in to help provide some assistance with some speech therapy or physical therapy or occupational therapy, but they don't necessarily go in to provide that skilled nursing. So IVs, not, okay, those types of things. Those would not be handled by home health services. We have noticed a higher use of home health services within the last couple of years, even more so within the last decade. The reason for that is because, number one, our aging population is growing. And number two, there is that thought process that if we can allow an older adult to successfully age in place, then that is what we want to do. And aging in place just means aging where they are. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're aging in their childhood home. It just means that they may be in a different area, or they may be in their home, in their family home. It just depends on what their in place is. Day treatment services, we have some, the biggest one is this respite care. Respite care is there to give family caregivers just a break. And for some facilities, there are some skilled nursing and nursing home facilities that offer some respite care where the individual can come in and be there for 2 weeks or a certain period of time, while family caregivers may take a break, take a vacation. It's not, thought to be, okay, we're just going to go drop grandpa off because we want to go on a family vacation. I mean, it could be that, sure. But respite care is there to give rest to the caregiver. I mentioned already adult daycare, where they are there to provide some supervision during the day. They may have some activities. There are some adult daycares or adult day centers that are specifically geared toward Alzheimer's disease or dementia. And so those individuals will go there specifically for those services. And then we also have a geriatric partial hospital, which provides psychiatric care to older adults in the community. Some alternatives for community housing. We have some government assisted housing, accessory dwelling units, and our CCRC, which is what I was talking about with Birch Haven. Government assisted housing, an example of that would be there are a couple of places. One is the Kiwanis Village here in Findlay, and also the Senior Towers over on Tiffin Avenue behind Joanne Fabric. Those are going to be places where rent is determined on their ability to pay and whether they need some assistance with that, and it's for low to moderate incomes of individuals. Accessory dwelling units, think about these as like the granny pods or the mother-in-law suites. Many architects and engineers are actually engaged in looking into ways to build better houses and better units for older adults. So, for example, if you are building a house and it's going to be a multi-generation family unit, you would probably have, if you have an older adult who's coming in to live with you, you would have them living on the first floor. You wouldn't have them navigating any stairs. You would have better lighting in their area. You would have maybe a walk-in shower, and bathrooms are easily accessible. They also might have their own kitchen, so they don't necessarily have to come out into the family part of the kitchen unless they want to, but it's a choice. And it might be someplace in a dream world, it would be like one of the most removed parts of your house where your older adult family member can feel like they're still part of the family, but they are enough removed that they can get away from the family if they want to. So this is just accessory dwelling units, like I said, granny pods, where individuals would build things in their backyard that look like sheds, and it's actually a little unit for their older family member. Continuing care retirement community are going to be those communities with different levels of care. Like I said, with Birch Haven. Birch Haven has a retirement village. They also are going to be having some income driven. I want to say it's government assisted housing. I don't know exactly, but I do know that it is income driven. So they're going to have some of those types of apartments out there. They also have apartments, condos. They also have a retirement area. Then they also move on into assisted living. They have memory care units, and then they also have a skilled nursing facility and a nursing home over there. So it's a number of different levels of care over there. Plus, they also have an intergenerational daycare over there, where it is it's within actually Birch Haven's building. So how do we finance long-term care? As I said, we've got Medicare and Medicaid. Care is for the elderly or the disabled, and CAID or AID is for those individuals who are in need of that assistance. Excuse me as I yawn, sorry about that. So Medicare is going to be an act that was actually passed in 1965, and it's administered by the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The big thing about Medicare is that once you reach a certain age, then you are eligible for Medicare. My throat is getting dry, sorry about that. So once you do reach that age, 65 was when actually FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, when it was enacted, 65 was the age that it started. Interestingly enough, the average life expectancy in 1935 was 63. So it was built for a system that at that time in 1935 was going to probably not be used too much. It was also considered a widow's benefit. But then we started living longer and longer, and our life expectancy was starting to grow just a little bit more. Our average life expectancy now is about another 19.5 years over the age of 65. So we're looking at 80 to 85 being the average life expectancy. So in 1965, they said, you know what, we need to do a little revamping of the Medicare Act, and that is when that occurred. Okay. So, and I'm sorry, Medicare passed in 1965. Social Security, I'm thinking I've got those two. So back up. Medicare, yes, 65, but Social Security as well, 65. Social Security Act was what was passed in 1935 with FDR. So I apologize. Let me back up and correct that. So Dr. Pitt just getting ahead of herself there. All right. These are just the different parts of Medicare. Open enrollment time, if you ever pay attention, is October. And so you'll start to see, if you watch regular television, a lot of Medicare commercials, a lot of Part A, Part B discussions, Part D, which is prescription, Part C is a Medicare Advantage program. So Part A is your hospital insurance. This covers your inpatient care in hospitals, your skilled nursing facility care that happens after your inpatient care in the hospital. It also covers hospice, which is a big thing. That's huge. It covers hospice and home health care. Medicare Part B was then tacked on later, where we said, well, Medicare Part A is pretty limiting. And so what happens when we have people who need to go see the doctor? So service from doctors and other healthcare providers is covered under Part B, outpatient, home health care, also durable medical equipment, and some preventive services. So scanning for like colonoscopies and mammograms, things like that, under Medicare Part B. Part C is an additional Medicare coverage. Individuals can choose to get Part C. This is just kind of an insurance policy on your insurance policy. Some individuals don't get Part C. It is typically run by Medicare approved private insurance companies. So like Aetna, Anthem, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, those types of companies that sell Part C. And then Part D is your prescription drug coverage. And this helps cover the cost of your prescription drugs. It is run by the same Medicare approved private insurance companies. It could help lower prescription costs, but this is also where we discuss the infamous thing called the donut hole. Okay, which is this lovely little thing right here. Okay, so Part D coverage is you can just read through this. You don't have to know this, but for those of you who I have in here who are pharmacists or going to be pharmacists, I think I've got one. Olivia, I believe you're my only pharmacist in here, and I apologize to anybody else if I missed you. But Part D, donut hole, is something that you probably have had to explain a number of times to individuals as to why my medication cost this much that last month, but why is it costing it's so much more this month? Or why are you not covering my medication this month? Okay. All right. So this just kind of explains that. So then Medicaid, which is also part of the Social Security Act, this is an entitlement program that's offered both on federal and state level. For older adults, this does cover inpatient and community health care costs that might not be covered by Medicare. Depends on what the state's law is on a spend down clause, but you have to only have so much in assets for Medicaid to step in and start paying for such things like long-term care. So it's kind of a sticky thing. Financial advisors are a really great group of people to know as far as understanding what Medicaid means and whether somebody qualifies for it. Okay, so this is just looking at what we see as far as Medicaid participation is, and then what the projected amount is going to be, okay? So most of them in there are children. Some individuals are disabled. And then we also have our older adults up there in that gray. I'm not going to go over too much on this, but just know that there is legislation, or there are pieces of legislation out there that long-term care didn't start in the United States until the mid to late 1950s. And the reason for it is because we had more individuals being hospitalized and then ending up dying in the hospital. And not to be crass, but the resources that were given to older adults in hospitals were viewed to be, I don't want to say wasted resources, but they were viewed to be, well, pretty much wasted resources. That if the older adult was just there to die in the hospital, then all they were doing was taking up doctor time, taking up beds. And what you'll see here in a little bit when we go over some of the things with ageism is born within that healthcare industry. So the response was, what we really need to do is we need to develop hospital-like facilities, but just for older adults who are going to live out the rest of their life in that facility. So the development of nursing homes started in the 1950s and kind of built from there. And about 1980s, Congress and a number of individuals were like, you know what, we probably need to have some regulations to kind of oversee these nursing homes because we haven't been hearing great things coming from them. If you don't have regulations, some people think, oh, regulations, they're so harsh, they're so bad, but they're there for a purpose. And if they're not there, then living conditions can be horrendous. So this just gives you a timeline of what that looks like, okay, in 1987 up to 2007, okay? So quality of long-term care, there is a certification and a reporting system, and this is what it looks like. It's labeled on an alphabetic system, so it's A through L, where no actual harm with potential for minimal harm, all the way up to immediate jeopardy to resident health or safety. And then they look at it in 3 different sections. Is it isolated? Do we see a pattern of this happening, or is this widespread? So if it's isolated, we're going to see it a few times. If it's a pattern, we're seeing it over a number of months, maybe even to years. And then widespread is we see it on both of these. We see it more with more people, and we see more of a pattern as well. So this is just how they rate those deficiencies. Okay. So the top deficiencies in 2014, infection control. So I am going to imagine what that's going to look like with COVID. I just can't even, I don't even want to know what that percentage is going to look like. It's going to be pretty big. Yeah. So yeah. And the accident or the environment that if there are accidents. So for example, poor lighting, poor flooring, not enough handrails, no pull cords in the bathroom, and then a fall happens in the bathroom. No, or the bars in the bathrooms are not adequately placed, or the toilet is too low, those types of things. Even on down to didn't put up a wet floor sign when we just got done mopping. Okay. Food sanitation, because they eat there in nursing homes, then they have to have certain food standards. And for those individuals who work in the food portion or the food part of a nursing home, you know that the health department has everything to do with that food sanitation. You need to know about it. You need to know about what temperature the silverware needs to be washed at, what temperature the glasses need to be washed at, all of that. Quality of care is a very broad category, but it can be anything from, wounds, if not wounds, like pressure sores, development, or not toileting fast enough, or, anything really. Unnecessary drugs. So an individual may be receiving medication that they shouldn't be, or and it's prescribed medication. Maybe the medication had been stopped, but the order was not updated in the chart. So those types of things. Pharmacy consultation, comprehensive care plan. Comprehensive care plan meaning we don't have people talking to each other. So you have a medical director who comes in and sees the patient or the resident once a week, and then changes something. But that change doesn't get conveyed. It's conveyed to the charge nurse, but then something happens in between the charge nurse and the aide. And then the aide is there doing something, but the doctor had said they don't want this resident moved until 8 o'clock at night, but the aide comes in. So that comprehensive care plan is where everybody, or it could be the social worker, it could be the pharmacist, it could be the chaplain, it could just be a number of individuals that are in that care plan, just not talking to each other. Okay. Clinical records, dignity, and qualified personnel also. All right. So some psychological issues that might happen in long-term care. We have models of adaptation where individuals are trying to adapt to the environment, but they also are trying to remain independent as well. There is a very tight rope that there is between somebody going into a nursing home and losing their independence, and something is taken away from them, and then the nursing home needing to take care of the needs of that resident, but also take care of the needs of 24 other residents in that wing. So it's a very, very fine line to walk between fostering the independence of somebody and not taking away too much of that independence to where they're becoming dependent. Yeah. This little box down here. So older adults with more education and more chronic illnesses wish to have more control over their environments. Pardon my barking dog if you can hear in the background. Think about individuals who are more educated about their own health and more educated about health conditions, that they want to be more involved in those healthcare decisions and those health conditions. So they are going to want to also have more control over the environment in which they are living. These models of adaptation, we think of it in the terms of environmental press, where the stimulation that they're receiving, the expectations that are had on them, and then the activity level that's in a nursing home. Think of an individual who just had been living by themselves and then all of a sudden fell, had been in the hospital, and they're trying to rehab, and they're placed in a nursing home. Now all of a sudden they may have a roommate. They have activity of aides and nurses and everybody coming in and being up in their business. They also have the activity level of everything going on out in the hallway. Lunch, dinner, and breakfast is scheduled, and you are brought out there to eat with a whole bunch of people that you don't know. So the environmental press can be great on individuals like that. Then there's this thought process of competence, meaning how competent are they able to handle those things? Somebody who is cognitively intact, who is in for rehab on a hip, would be able to sit there and reason with themselves and say, yeah, you know what? Okay, I know that it's kind of like being in a hospital. I'm going to be doing what I need to do in order to get home. And so I'm going to rehab. I'm going to do what they tell me to do. I understand that I'm going to have to go eat when they tell me to eat, whatever. But I'm able to handle all of that stimulation versus somebody who comes in for a stroke and their cognition is all over the place. They are not understanding. Their competence is very low. Their physical ability is very low, especially if they are side affected, if they're right side or left side affected. So that environmental press is going to be so high, and their competence is going to be so low that their adaptation is not going to be that great. Residents who are able to adapt to those types of situations are going to be very even in the environmental press and their competence. This is this is a big thing, right? Because if you think about older adults who are trying to show that they are competent to be able to go home on their own, they have to be able to meet that high level of stimulation, that high level activity. The expectations are great. You're going to have a physical therapist in there working with me for 2 hours a day. I'm going to have to show to them that I can do these things. Okay. So this is that discussion on environmental press and the competence, the individual's ability to do so. This is just another example of this, just on a little teeter-totter. And we understand that if we have it equally balanced, we are able to handle all of these things. But if there is one that is weighing more than the other, then the teeter-totter is off kilter. So some suggestions for improving long-term care. This competence press model implies that the needs of individuals should be met to the greatest extent possible. So for example, if I am over here, right, in my environmental press, and I am expected to be out eating lunch or dinner, but I don't really like to eat with other people, then they can bring my meal to me. So they might expect me to go out and eat in the community, but I don't want to. Okay, well, we'll bring the food to you. Okay, so my expectations, they've kind of relaxed them for me a little bit, okay? I might not like you coming in and being in my face at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to tell you that much. They have to listen to that, okay? If I am able to make those comments, and if you're coming in and starting my day at 8 o'clock in the morning, when I typically don't start my day until 10, then they have to meet me somewhere, okay? So that is this whole thought of that they need to meet the needs of the individual to the greatest extent possible. Using behavioral methods to increase independence can benefit staff-resident relationships. There are probably a few of you who have some residents who don't want to do what they're told to do, and there need to be some behavioral modifications that may need to occur. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Creating a feeling of neighborhood or community in the nursing home design. We're starting to see more and more nursing homes developed like little communities. There is actually an adult day center out in California that is developed into a 1950s style town with a diner and different things. So these designs are starting to meet more the needs of those individuals needing those services, and allocating staff to meet the care of needs of residents. In other words, let's make sure that we have enough staff to meet the needs of small amount of residents, not one person for 24 beds, which typically is what it ends up being, or one person for 12 beds. One person for 2 to 3 beds is a great little ratio right there. So that would be a suggestion for improving that long-term care. Okay. We have this concept called the greenhouse model. I would highly encourage you to, there is a video, I don't have it on here, but there is a video, a couple of videos on greenhouse model. If you want to watch it, these are individual homes that, so for example, there is one in Bluffton called Willow Ridge, and it is a green nursing home. There are also other ones called tiny homes. Now, we're not talking about the tiny home movement, okay? I think it's called tiny homes. Small homes, I don't remember what it is, but the greenhouse model is actually a trademarked model of a geriatrician who is big into, he was the one who came up with the Eden alternative, and he came up with this greenhouse model, and now he's got some Minka homes, and boy, if I can't remember, Bill, I'll remember it at some point in time. But this is a nursing home that has about 6 to 10 residents per home, and then they have skilled nursing staff that gives that ratio of like what I said, that 1 to every 2 to 3 residents. And those are the aides. They're called shabazz or shabazim. It's more designed to feel like a home. The center part is a living room concept with an open dining room area with a kitchen. The shabazz are in there to meet the needs of the residents, and so they'll cook meals for them specifically. So, for example, if everybody's maybe somebody wanted spaghetti, and everybody else is having fish, the shabazz will cook spaghetti for that older adult, for that resident. The jury is still out on whether this model is actually better, and better meaning what are some of the measurable standards that we can look at. Improved quality of living, improved fall risk, or falls, improved use of medication. Those types of things still kind of out on whether the greenhouse model is considered something to be of more benefit than a typical nursing home or skilled nursing facility. And then we have this, what do we need in geriatric care? We need to enhance our competence in it. We need to increase recruitment and retention of good people, and we need to improve our models of care. All right, so that is the nursing home section. And then I'm going to pop in here and we're going to look at the ageism. I'm just going to do this. Okay, yeah, there we go. All right. This is what I'm going to do. There we go. All right. So ageism is something that we have talked about a little bit in one of the earlier chapters. And this one is actually coined by a man. He was a doctor, psychiatrist, actually, in the 1960s, in 1968, by Robert Butler. He was actually the individual who founded the National Institute on Aging, which is actually something that is still alive and well today. He was a chair of geriatrics at Mount Sinai Hospital. He used the term in a Washington Post article. So what happened was that there was a housing authority that wanted to turn an existing apartment complex in Chevy Chase, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C., it's in Maryland, into public housing. But it wasn't just going to be public housing for just anybody. It was going to be for the elderly poor, okay? He asked, or what happened was the neighborhood blew a big fit. They said, we don't want that. We don't want to have a whole bunch of old people sitting out on the curb, making the neighborhood look bad, because we don't like to have old, decrepit people sitting around. So because there was also this whole discussion of racism and sexism, because in the 1960s, the Civil Rights Movement of 1964 was passed. He asked if this was an issue of racism. So in this instance, he said that what he thought was, this is not based on race, because African Americans were going to be moving into this complex. It wasn't because of that. It was because of how old they were. It was because of their age of the intended residents. They opposed that change, those residents in Chevy Chase, because they didn't feel that their neighborhood was going to be the same once those older adults moved in there. And so what he said he said, people talk about aging gracefully, which is what they want to do, of course. So naturally, that's supposed to be they don't want to look at people who may be palsied, who can't eat well, who may sit on the curb and clutter up the neighborhood with canes. He went on to say, until our society builds a more balanced perspective about age groups, this lends to embittered withdrawal by old people. So basically what we had seen here was the start of us paying attention to what is considered to be ageism or age bigotry. Okay? So this just gives kind of an idea of where we have been as far as aging is concerned. In Neolithic cultures, older men and women who could no longer contribute were often cast aside. They were often left to die. a philosopher of the BC to AD era said that old age is a disease, that there is futility in granting health access to the old, that they're just going to die anyway, so why should we waste the resources? This was what we were starting to see with post-World War II, where more and more individuals just had negative responses to age and aging. Then we started to see that there were denial of job opportunities within employment, which then led to the enactment in 1967 of the Age Discrimination in Employment Act. So since we've identified age as a marker, as an ism, we have started to see that we started to say, okay, well, if we don't want to think that age is a bad thing, then let's tell people that growing old is a good thing. So a positive development of that is discounts and entitlements that may have been born from that. So if you are familiar with what's called the Golden Buckeye Card or senior discounts, but then there are some individuals who say that those benefits do still convey ageism, that the thought that all old people are poor and that they all need discounts. But actually, in essence, older adults are better off than their younger cohorts as far as money is concerned. Yeah, so if we start looking at ageism and how we relate it to certain things, we start to relate it to health issues with Alzheimer's disease. We also relate it to sexual identity and some sexual orientation issues, STDs, rates of dementia, okay? And ageism can prey on vulnerability. It can absolutely lead people to not want to grow, or lead them to believe that they don't want to grow older, that all that's going to happen is they're just going to get frail and they're just going to die, which, I mean, yes, we're all going to die, but that it's a bad, well, okay, I want to say it's a bad thing, that frailty is what's going to lead to our downfall and is going to lead to our eventual death. That's what I meant to say. Okay, so ageism in elder care, training healthcare professionals to treat older patients with dignity and compassion. That is very important, okay? Oh, so Butler actually went on to say this, which I think is a great statement. It is ironic then that at the same time, Americans are beginning to see an unfolding of the entire life cycle for a majority, meaning we're starting to see people live longer and longer lives. We continue to have embedded in our culture a fear of growing old, manifest by negative stereotypes and language that belittles the very nature of growing old, its complexities and tremendous variability. So basically, we're living longer, but yet we still have embedded in our culture, in our society, that fear of growing old. And that fear of growing old is brought about by these negative stereotypes and the negative language that is there that belittles the aging. So ageism in healthcare. This is just a look at where we do see ageism: elder abuse, discrimination in emergency services, workplace discrimination, discrimination in the media, marketing. So where we're talking about here is healthcare and discrimination in nursing homes. So 35% of doctors erroneously consider an increase in blood pressure to be a normal process of aging. 35%. It should be zero. That should be 0%. Okay? Because if we naturally think that because we're growing older, it's a natural process of aging to have an increase in blood pressure, we're ignoring something, right? We're ignoring the cause of that increase in blood pressure. What's causing it? Is it because I'm eating a bad diet? Is it because I have a family history of it? Is it because my medication is no longer working? If we have doctors, 35% of doctors saying, oh, no, it's just because you're growing old, then we're missing something, and we're missing a huge thing, okay? Which could eventually lead to somebody's death, right? 60%, 65 and over, do not receive recommended preventive services. And that could be for a number of reasons. That could be because the 65 and over don't think they need to do it because they are growing older and they don't have to take care of themselves like that anymore, or they might be out of the risk factor of whatever it is that they are there for preventive services. It could just be a number of things. 40% of 65 and over don't receive the flu or pneumonia vaccinations. They even receive less preventive care for high blood pressure because they've got 35% of the doctors telling them that's a normal part of the aging process. All right? See where this is a problem. 10% of 65 and over receive appropriate screenings. 10% appropriate screenings. 10% of the over 65 population. And chemotherapy is underused in the treatment of breast cancer patients over 65. Could you well imagine? You get in there, you're 67, you have breast cancer, and your doctor says, yeah, well, no, I don't think we're going to suggest chemotherapy for you. Okay. Well, why? Is it based on my age or is it based on my risk factors? If it's based on my risk factors, then let's talk about those. If it's based on my age, then you're telling me that I'm not worth the medication. Okay. All right. Exclusion from clinical drug trials. Hey, how do you like how I have health care discrimination? Then I've got healthcare discrimination. Very consistent, Dr. Pitt. Okay. Exclusion from clinical drug trials. We do see that happen with older adults, especially in the field of breast cancer. 20% of 65 and over are emotionally disturbed, but mental health focuses mainly on young people. If you recall, the very first question on the survey, the questionnaire, is that suicide is considered to be more disturbing, or I can't remember the exact word that it uses, is more disturbing in young people than it is in older people. Well, that probably, I'm not going to make a comment because I don't want to skew your second answer. Okay. Okay. We also see it in nursing home discrimination, where I love it when I have context. If Dr. Pitt doesn't remember what 9 out of 10 means, Dr. Pitt doesn't need to have 9 out of 10 on there. So let's just take that out of there. Okay. Nursing home discrimination can happen to 1.5 million men and women because that's how many individuals in 2018, I believe, were in nursing homes. Nursing homes, about 54% of them fail to meet the minimum standards, and only 0.5% are cited and penalized for patterns of widespread problems that cause harm to residents. We need to have about $7.6 billion a year to pay to reach adequate staffing levels, and there are a tremendous amount of staffing needs in nursing homes. And therefore, what we end up finding is that we have a large percentage of nursing homes failing to meet those minimum standards. And it could just be staff to patient ratio or staff to resident ratio. Terms in the medical profession that have occurred with older adults: a bed blocker. This is a big one in the 1950s, where, remember when I was talking about hospitals needing to open up beds for individuals who needed to have them, but they were being used by older adults when they were dying. Doctors during that time called those older adults bed blockers because they were blocking the bed. A crock, a fossil, a gerry, meaning gerontology, a goji. I'm trying to remember what goji is. Get out. I can't remember what that, but Gomer is get out of my ER. SPOS is a special piece of, So many times you've never heard of these, but these are terms that have been identified through research that have been used in the medical profession for older adults. More on doctor stereotyping physical health, that certain diseases are old age diseases. Only 10% of American medical schools in the United States require coursework or rotations in geriatrics. 10%. Less than 3% of medical school graduates will take those electives. The need for geriatricians is so much more than pediatricians. There are 7,800 geriatricians to 19 to 20, no, 96,000. That's right. 96,000 pediatricians. So thousands to the tens of almost 100,000 pediatricians. Ageism and health literacy, meaning older adults who may not be as health literate may then be talked down to in the health professions or healthcare or health field. Cost of healthcare within the thought process is that the only thing that we're doing with healthcare is deferring death. But we have so many surgery and technological advancements in the field of healthcare that we are deferring death even farther and farther and farther and farther out. But we have found that actually the costs in neonatology and trauma units are actually just as high as the cost of an older adult dying. Dialysis in older people, a lot of the discussion, it boils down to quality of life with dialysis. Is this going to extend somebody's life? And if so, what's their quality of life going to be like? I have Viagra and arthritis. Actually, insurance policies, Medicare Part D policies and insurance policies will pay for Viagra faster than they'll pay for drugs for arthritis. Let that one sink in. Okay. Institutional ageism is either unintentional or it's inadvertent in the healthcare system, meaning we don't necessarily intend to show that we're ageist in the healthcare system in institutional ageism, but it just happens because it's inherent in the healthcare system. Yes. We have been witnessing this with COVID, especially, right? With the assessment of ICU beds and the assessment of resources for older adults and individuals who are deemed to have a better survivability after COVID, and that we have seen and heard scales being used for that assessment, used in Italy and now being used here in the United States. So it's a question of this: are older patients seen as less valuable than younger patients? We're not going to go over this. And if you haven't seen it, it's a cute little clip from The Office. Okay. All right. So let me get off of this, stop sharing, start video. Okay. So that is it. That was a long one, wasn't it? All right. So I will have the assignments posted with this, and I'll have the PowerPoints posted as well for both the Chapter 12 and Ageism lectures. And I will also have a video up with your assignment for your final assignment. Okay? All right, I think that's all. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to stop this lovely little session. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Thanks.